Host of Respect My Region's Hire Women podcast, where we talk to influential women in the music and cannabis industry. On today's show, we have the pleasure of speaking with Lindsey Bartlett. She's an author, photographer, and social media editor who has contributed to Forbes, Insider, Weed Maps, and the list goes on. She has documented the evolutionary cannabis industry for the past decade, and today we will be talking about her favorite interviews, cannabis on social media, her career in writing, and more. Lindsey, how are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm here in sunny Florida. It's getting down to like the end of the day here, so it's not as sunny, but I'm still having a great time.
I love it. East Coast to West Coast.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're out in California, right?
Yeah. I live in Long Beach. And so I get to
Awesome.
report on the industry all over SoCal, which is exciting. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, how did you first get into writing? I know that you lived in Denver. Did you start over there?
Yeah, I grew up in Denver, so I was lucky enough to be writing for a zine fresh out of college at the same time I was working at a dispensary. So I worked in what I call was like the Wild West medical days in Colorado and absorbed so much knowledge. I actually was reporting on and selling weed on the first day of legalization in Colorado in 2014. So like from there, I just wanted to write, but I felt like a little sponge absorbing everything I could about the industry. And then I worked my way up. I worked my way up from the Alt Weekly westward, which is beloved, which still kills it to this day. The editor Tom Mitchell is a friend of mine, to the Denver Post. And the Denver Post was like the first Associated Press Pulitzer Prize winning publication that covered weed. So I wanted to kind of take that beat and run with it. And I just felt like it was really exciting to document something. Like I wrote about food, I wrote about music, I've interviewed people for television and film, but something about cannabis because none of those other things are illegal or moving from an unlicensed to a licensed marketplace. It just kind of felt like, from a documentarian standpoint, the most interesting thing to write about. Yeah, it's been a total whirlwind ever since. I moved to California to work for Weed Maps. I also have worked for Entrepreneur as well as a bunch of different publications who want to cover weed, but like a movement to like the mainstream, which is like what Forbes and Insider do, which has been really fun. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
That's super cool. Like, and it's awesome to talk to you, like someone that's seasoned in writing too, because I'm fresh in it myself. So it's cool to see like your evolution and stuff. How do you not get burnt out from, you know what I mean, writing for so long?
That's a great question. I'm still working on the answer to that one, so I will try to figure it out for you. I feel like the capitalist machine is burning us all out. At the same time, I feel invigorated by certain things that come in cannabis. Like, I've been waiting for this like floodgates to open of federal legalization, and it feels like until that point, it's like electricity. You know, it's really exciting to wait until that kind of like nationwide legalization sweeps the country, which could be years, but like that there's like this little pulse of electricity in cannabis because we're all just like anticipating that. And then like eventually just kind of like a worldwide market that is only beginning, but other countries are, you know, like shooting past us, like Germany, all of those. It really excites me to think about like just being a documentarian during this moment in history. I also get kind of like reinvigorated by people. Like people are constantly keeping you on your toes within the industry. They're just like really exciting. They have a ton of energy to like help heal the world, move the world forward, like change things for the better. So that's my like remedy, is trying to find something that you love so much that it puts a little like gas in your tank. And also kind of self-care. I am like a one person newsroom and I don't cover everything. I think picking a beat that you are really passionate about within a niche like cannabis, and then, you know, a whole newsroom of like 20 people could cover every story. But I'm more interested in like quality over quantity. I'm more interested in covering stories that I haven't told before. So I don't burn out because I don't write as much as I used to, and I don't write everything and feel like I have to cover everything in this digital world. It's kind of like, finding that balance, like even killing it.
Yeah. And where did your passion for writing specifically like come from? Did you always like were you always like writing just like doing songs and stuff, or like how did you come into it?
Such a great question. I always wanted to be a writer. I actually went to school not for journalism, but for online writing, which
Okay.
was like English as well as creative writing. But then it took over the digital realm. It was kind of like, how can we move towards a future where like SEO, social media, blogs, sorry, one sec. Those
You're
are
good.
all something that happen to be like coding, SEO, these tools that have moved us, as we're speaking now, podcast, YouTube, anything that kind of was like the digital tool that could mean more people were reading my stuff than ever before, just not in the way that they used to. So yeah, I wanted to be read. And then journalism kind of was like, okay, this is digital. How do we tell a story to an audience and kind of like shine a light on someone who really, really deserves it? And that became more important to me than anything else. So yeah, I just kind of like went from college into like, okay, what stories need to be told in my hometown? And then what stories need to be told across the country and across the world? Looking around, elevating people that I could, was how I fell into writing. And then, yeah, I'm basically a self taught journalist, but I'm really, really proud of the amount that I've accomplished in journalism. But I started like, I used to joke that I was a poet masquerading as a journalist. So I started creative writing and I wanted to just like morph it into what it is today, which is like digital storytelling.
That's really cool. I love like your whole explanation of that. That's amazing. Can you go into detail on like how you go about doing creative writing for cannabis?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of it as even on social media, anywhere you are, Instagram caption, um, like a poem. I know it sounds silly, or like a quote. Like, how can you make this as interesting as possible and tell a whole story in 8 words or a sentence? It's almost like a puzzle. So for me, even though this might sound cheesy, like I do take like poetry and like really journalistic integrity to social media, to the way you speak to people across platforms. Like even if you're on TikTok, taking that educated, like poetic kind of diction with you everywhere you go. Yeah, so I'm really proud of like even like lists, things that people say, oh, that's like a really utilitarian article. I
Hmm.
really want it to be like elegant and flowy and like incorporate this prose that makes it interesting to read.
That's awesome. And
Thanks.
how do you go about, because I know like different social medias have, you know what I mean, censorship when it comes to cannabis. What's like the best social media for cannabis, and
Mm.
how can you navigate that space?
Gosh, that is a constantly evolving landscape and a tough question. I love Twitter. Twitter is friendly to cannabis. Twitter is a place where you can show full nugs, where you can actually show like the flower and not get it flagged. Twitter is also like a safe place for, other things that have been banned by Instagram. And so I feel like I see a resurgence there. I also really love like diversifying across the board. Right now, YouTube just kind of opened up something that content that is educational, or I'm sorry, educational that covers cannabis, you can monetize. And so it never used to be like that. That was in the last year. I think YouTube is a really, really cool platform for education, that no one has like really dominated yet because it was restricted for so long. I love TikTok, but it's really tough. Like that might be even tougher on cannabis than Instagram. People are speaking in code, like you can't even mention the flower, you can't even show it. But
I
it's
literally
just like
got
an
banned on TikTok like the
oh
other day because
no.
I was trying to do like a cannabis thing. Like it is super hard on TikTok to fly under the radar when it comes to cannabis. They must have some kind of AI that like knows what a bong looks like. They must
Yep.
like because it got flagged so quick and they're just like nope. And I was like all right.
They
I
have
tried.
like crazy strict AI. And first of all, I'm sorry it got taken down because I've had so many community guidelines on TikTok. It's been really experimental for me. The thing is, I feel like you can go viral when you've just created your account. But if you're in cannabis for a little while, for a few months, for a few years, the odds of you getting shadow banned, so really hard to discover, become high. So I feel like a lot of cannabis creators on TikTok are like going viral fresh out the gate, but then they're like totally hidden from their 100,000 followers for like years after that. That's kind of what happened to me, but I do feel like it's really exciting on there because it reminds me of Instagram in like 2014. Like no one's really on it. There's a few cannabis companies that do it well. They do not show anything. One company is Ancillary. They make bongs. They're called Daily High Club.
Okay.
They've taken a really cool approach, just kind of doing trends, doing jokes, doing bits, never showing product, but like tipping their hat to it. Yeah, there's someone named Dope Kitchen. She cooks with cannabis and she does everything cannabis like off screen. Like she'll lean off, hit it, and come back. So there's a few ways you can do it. I just think it's fun on there because it's like just so new, so innovative, so creative. I do like Instagram still. I've been on Instagram forever. It's gotten increasingly challenging for cannabis companies to be on any meta platforms, including Facebook. I think they've really been cracking down on these like illicit pages that come up and like impersonate real brands. So if you're like the Facebook bots, you can't really tell the difference between a fake cookies and a real cookies, which sucks. Like there are tons of impersonators. So I feel like there's a larger thing that like Instagram needs to solve. I did just see a petition on change.org started by the WeedTube founder, Aaron Richard, that is like, Instagram, let's talk. I want a dialogue. Cannabis companies need a seat at the table to kind of figure this out, figure out how we can make this work because it's legal so many places. I feel like I see like a tipping. Eventually it'll tip over in our favor and there's no going back. But I just hope people don't lose really, really dope high follower accounts until we get there. It's been like a long road. But I suggest to people to diversify, have a ton of different platforms. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, like the Instagram basket. Get on Twitter, get on YouTube, even LinkedIn popping off for cannabis these days. Just
For
kind of
real?
any, it really is. It's like reminds me of the reach we used to get on Facebook. I think just like personal people sharing. So yeah, I just think diversify, like get on a podcast, get in a digital realm so that your eggs are not all in like the Zuckerberg basket because that can be taken away at any time. It's the way
For
it is right
sure.
now.
And since you're riding on the high of not federal legalization yet, do you see yourself continuing to grow in the cannabis industry, even after that, indefinitely, or do you see yourself like pursuing other topics?
I love cannabis. I feel like cannabis culture will be a part of everything I write for as long as I live because like I'm a stoner through and through. I've been a cannabis advocate my entire life. But I mean, I've always kind of said I'm a writer, I'm an author, and I like to write other things. I'd love to go into other modalities right now because I've written on the journalistic beat for so long. I'm pitching agents as well as publications for books. I also see tons of opportunity in creative spaces like film and television for like new stoner stories. So even if I'm writing, I feel like weed is going to be a part of it because it's just like authentically a part of who I am.
For sure.
I've written some poetry books that have like centered weed as well.
That's
So
so dope.
everything, yeah, everything I do will always kind of have that advocacy at heart. I love journalism. I think it's a tough industry. So I feel like as it evolves, I just like have so many more creative tools under my belt. But like right now, I really tell stories I've never told before. Like I don't compete in the journalistic realm with anyone but my past self of like, has this story happened before? Is this new? Is this innovative? Is it unique? And yeah, that's what I think is really interesting. And I think like capturing that cultural moment in history could go, to a ton of different places in pop culture. The one thing I will say about journalism is the news cycle is very, very fast. Digital news cycle turns over in like an hour.
Yeah.
So like we write these amazing pieces, like you pour your heart into it, but it doesn't live really that long in a digital realm. It might like shoot out the gate. You might have people Googling it, which is really, really crucial and important and like a public service. But I want something that lives longer. I want something that like you could hold and hand to people and be like, this is the history. This is what happened. Journalists are doing that in tiny little pieces and kind of like
Mm.
marrying that together and documenting that history. Yeah, I'll always write about weed for real.
Oh, that's awesome. What would you tell yourself if you could go back to like when you first started writing?
Oh, that's such a good one. There's this one quote. I forget who said it, but they say the easiest thing to do in life is not write. So I'd probably tell myself that again, but I do it anyways. Um, I don't know. I would say to find what makes you unique and to lean into it. You're not competing with anyone. Really, when it comes to cannabis normalization, cannabis legalization, even all the brands are not competitors because we're all on the same side of history for this fight. Like we all have a common goal, which would be cannabis access across the country and across the world, like for it to be ubiquitous
For
and
sure.
accessible and safe. So no one's your competition. Like no one, don't compete with anyone. I want us all to make it. I want all these cannabis companies to succeed, as well as these writers, because it's just been prohibited for so long. Like no one has ever written enough about weed, especially women. Like I want more.
I know, and it's crazy to like look at the internet and look things up and things not pop up. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you can look up anything, but when it comes to like a strain, when it comes to, specific things, there's like really a lack of information that's like exactly what you're, looking for. And it's so cool cuz like I've written about, like what to do when you're high, like a little bit of, creative writing there and different stuff like that. And it's super fun to write about. And it's like at first like I was kind of battling the stigma in my own head because like I come from Florida, and we're not necessarily like the culture is like more underground than it is more medical. So like there's more people that are underground than talk about more medically that I've seen. But yeah, it's just like it's just different, and it's just like so interesting to see that, you know what I mean, now that it's popped up, but it's still not on the internet as much as you would think that it would be at this time.
Oh, totally. Or it's like, the problem with the larger internet. It's a sea of information and you don't really know what to trust. So I love what your company does. Respect My Region is like, you can trust this. I also have really tried to do that every place I've been, from like weed maps. I used to help write strains and like go into the history and go into the genetics and be like, here's a little like shining lighthouse in like a sea of information that you're not really sure is true. I feel like that is one of the best goals of anyone writing, especially on a subcultural beat, to make it trustworthy, to make you taken seriously, and to propel normalization, which is like, really taking as serious of a tone journalistically and like really taking care of it, making sure people know that it's true and you can trust them, because I feel like a lot of people don't know if they can trust cannabis journalism. So that movement in that direction, being able to Google things and be like, oh, Leafly has this answer. And I know Leafly's legit and vetted, and like those journalists do a great job. The consumer is getting there, but so few people know. So people know like what's trustworthy and what's not. So we're helping them get there. We're like guiding them along as writers.
For sure, and it's so cool to see how education about cannabis has continuously grown, just from like indica to sativa. And obviously, we're in more of a space where it's like obviously right in our face, but like hoping that more and more people can understand like more about terpenes and like all of the intricacies that come with, different strains and things like that, because it's not just all, the same plant, it's not all grown the same way, and like there's a lot of people that, what I mean, could use the information that we're creating, and it does feel like we're a part of history in a sense, because it is still like illegal, but
Yeah.
it definitely deserves to have information on it out there for the people that are obviously using it, or what I mean, trying to find out more about it. And I believe the cannabis industry is just like not a gate kept industry. It feels like internally, you know what I mean, like
Yep.
every person I feel like I talk to in the cannabis industry is always like for the team, like we're all like in this together. It's really refreshing. really refreshing.
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree. And that's so funny what you say. Like, I feel like education gives the tools to the consumer. Like, we can tell from data that people are hungry for this information. People are searching like the hell out of this information. And just like when alcohol went from prohibited to legal, like what we need to do is give that information to the consumer so they can make trusted decisions, like how much a dose is. 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. You just kind of have to be as clear as possible with things like dosing, indica, sativa, terpenes. And then once the consumer has all that information, the industry can really flourish. Right now, I feel like, we're obviously very far behind alcohol, but what
For sure.
alcohol did when we were kids, they were like, one shot equals one beer equals one glass of wine. That hands the responsibility to the consumer. So the education is the reason an industry can grow, is the reason that we can be like, look, we have information on edibles and how they affect you. And so it's on the consumer to make those decisions. It's not like, weed is scary. It's like, no, here's the information. Don't be scared. And just making it as clear as physically possible, taking those cues from the already existing industries that give as much information as possible so that the consumer is able to make those choices. And we see a ton of consumers moving to cannabis, just like overall wellness, wanting something else besides pharmaceuticals and alcohol. Like, what else is there to help me with my mental and physical health? It's
Yep.
really exciting. The history is palpable.
Yeah, it's super probable, and there's so many great minds behind the cannabis industry too to propel it forward. You know what I mean? There's like some crazy great business people, crazy great marketing people that are just like being held back right now by like the restrictions, federal legalization. But I've seen some even great marketing from Weed Maps. I saw the broccoli video from the Super Bowl. That was just amazing. I always think about that as like, you know what I mean, cannabis ad. Because how many cannabis ads do you see? Yeah, I mean on the
Never.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like really really cool to see that, and it sparks such conversations. You know what I mean? Like weed has always been controversial, but like over time, we've seen like such a heightened, like you said, there's people hungry for information. We've seen such a heightened interest in finding out more about it, and it's just like a matter of time before people can really get the full picture, the full blast of what cannabis can really be, um, once the wall is lifted on that.
I totally
But
agree. Weed Maps is awesome. Their marketers are awesome. I used to work full time on that team, so I can attest to like how creative and out of the box and innovative that marketing team is trying to be. And cannabis marketers have to be. We can't use traditional methods of advertising. We can use very few of them, and then the regulations vary from not even state to state, but county to county. I've
wow,
talked about the marketing regulations, among other regulations, as like a patchwork of chaos. Like every single county is different. And then when you're advertising on a digital realm that's like international and national, it doesn't have such strict borders. Like you
yeah,
really can't limit it the way that regulations are currently. So one of the things I think that marketers are doing best is like experiential. Like maybe it's events, maybe it's like having an after party at an experiential space, or private events are one of the only spaces where consumption exists. So in lieu of like traditional marketing or advertising, one example of a company who did that is Jeter. I took a photo during this event of theirs where they had a drone show, which is like the
ooh,
light show in the sky. I've never seen it before, and it was like weed themed and like Super Mario themed. And so
that's super
everyone,
cool.
yeah, everyone who's there just like looks up in the sky, starts taking videos on their phone. My personal video from that event went viral, and people were like, "Oh my god, I love this brand." And I was like, "Okay, well that's how you market today, because
Yeah,
I can share it personally, people can share it across the digital realm because it's an experience that they're having. Meanwhile, we can't pay for Instagram ads, so how do you go big? Not everyone can afford a drone show. I'm just like giving one example of
yeah.
like creative, experiential, like cannabis guerrilla marketing. Weed Maps does it well. Jeter does it well. A few other companies are like, kind of getting to see what's possible in that realm. So can't wait to see what they come up with.
Yeah, for real. And I was wondering, so you say you're a stoner. What's your favorite method of consumption?
Such a great question. I love them all. It depends on what I need. It depends on my mood. Often I hit my Puffco. I love to smoke live resin. I love to smoke like solventless. Puffco is such a cool innovation. Once you have one, it's almost like, how do I live without this? Or how did I live without this? I just think it's like convenient, and I love concentrates because they're just so flavorful, especially like a rosin.
Mm,
I love flower. I often roll joints, so I prefer joints over glass, and I roll my own. And I really, really like um, some of these like OG growers out in LA. One company that grows really good OG is the Cure Company. I really, really like LA Traditional. I like new shit that I get to try, like Khalifa Kush was fire. That was another California OG. So I will smoke anything, but if you ask me my favorite, it would be like a big fat joint or like a beautiful rosin hit off of my Puffco.
that's beautiful. And I
Yeah.
saw that you did a recent interview with Wiz Khalifa. Did you get
Yeah.
to smoke with him as well?
I'd love to smoke with him. It's on my bucket list. We just spoke over the phone. But I've been to a bunch of his shows before. It felt really cyclical. I covered a show that he did with Snoop Dogg in my home state of Colorado on 420 when Colorado was the only legal state. And
Wow.
it was like the Wiz and Snoop show, and it was like totally 420 themed. It was the first sponsored by a dispensary I worked for. And then I got to interview him again. He said he's doing a show this year, which I think might have been just announced. But I think he's just like synonymous with cannabis culture. Like everyone grew up
For
with that
sure.
whiz music in the background. And he was smoking during the interview. I could just tell by his like breaths. And I mean, I'm sure he like lights a massive blunt before every interview because he's whiz and because he can. But yeah, I'll have to smoke with him next time I see him. I might be seeing him at like the Smokers Club Fest. And I will bring a blunt for Wiz, as
Yeah.
everyone should. Everywhere they go, they should always have a blunt for Wiz, just like in their pocket.
For real. Yeah, I like to smoke my bowl or my bong, and then I also do like a joint. I roll strawberry paper
Mm.
joints because I love strawberries, and I like my whole life is strawberries. I have like strawberry bags and like a big strawberry in my house, and luckily you didn't catch me right now. Well, luckily not luckily, but you didn't catch me right now with any strawberries on, but that's cuz we're far away from home, but if you see any of my shows, you'll see the little strawberry in the background. I keep all my teas in it and everything.
I love it. You got to smoke on brand. No, I love those little.
Yes.
Those papers are delicious. Those papers are absolutely delicious. I know what you're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah, they're Juicy
Yeah.
J. I was like,
Mm.
whoo, yeah, and they're beautiful too. They're like so
Mhm.
pretty. I feel like I just got like this little gift. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yep.
wrapped in like little wrapping paper almost.
You're so right. I love that. And that's what I love about joints is they're like a ritual.
Yeah.
Like just like you grind your coffee in the morning, it's like I grind my weed and I roll it up and it feels very ritualistic and magic. And I love those little pink joints like Blazy Susans. I'll
Yes.
smoke any pretty joints. Like I'm down. If it's like a hemp paper, I'm like, give it to me. Whatever it is. If it's pink, I'll take it.
Yeah. And do you see like with commercialization of weed in the future, do you think what do you think will be like the take on it? Do you think it'll be more health and wellness or like more like party? What do you think?
If I had to guess, my best guess, and this is like hopeful for the future, that cannabis will be like ubiquitous in every Rite Aid and every Walgreens and in dispensaries across the country and across the world in like 10 years. I believe it's going to be whatever people need it for. Like if I need it for pain, which happens a lot, like it happens for me monthly and I need to dab and I need to do it in a stronger method. Um, Depending on the time of day, I use it either recreationally or medically. So I don't think it'll be pigeonholed into a medical space. They can try, but there's a huge market for people who use it on a Friday night for fun, as well as when they have a headache the next day. It's both. It's always going to be both. It has so many different uses. It's so vast. I feel like it'll be in toothpaste. I feel like it'll be in lotions, in accessible places, as well as, you know, these lifestyle cultural dispensary brands will be as frequent as Starbucks. That is my
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah, I recently talked to a woman called Maha Hawk. She is a part of
Mm,
Green Thumb Dispensaries, and she's doing stuff with consumption lounges too. I'm very excited for that.
yes.
Um, I
I
just
love
I
Maha. I love
Yeah,
her. She's so
really,
good. Yeah.
yeah, she's super cool. She's so nice when she came on too.
Good. She's
Yeah,
badass. I included her in Green Entrepreneurs list of like women in cannabis. And she was like leading student alliances across the state at that time. And GTI that she went to is a great company. I can't wait for the consumption spaces. I feel like LA had just started and then the pandemic happened. And so they pulled back. Um, I went to the restaurant. I wrote about the first restaurant that was Lowell Cafe, which was so fun and so unique. And I want more of those spaces to be accessible to people. I mean, that was like a dream, like having a waitress bring you weed as well as like a hamburger. I want places like that on every corner for people who want the option besides alcohol. So yeah, I think consumption lounges also in New York City on the East Coast where you are now. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what they do. Like Cali might have better weed and our consumption spaces are cool, but no one does clubs like New York. No one does.
yeah.
I can't wait to see what they do.
I've heard. Like, I'm so jelly. I need my friend Hannah. She works with us to take me because she used to live there for a bit. And she said it was like amazing. She misses it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. I love New York City. There's a few popping up. Some are like underground still. For example, one's called the Astor Club
Mm.
and it's private. So the reason they're able to do it is like it's private invite only event, but
Ooh.
you can consume cannabis there. Another person was doing it on Coney Island. He called the space Stony Island. Um,
Ha.
yeah, his name is Pizza Pusha.
Okay.
But from what I understand, I think it's Delta 8. So I don't recommend that as much as like the Astor Club. But yeah,
Right.
it'll be really cool to see how New York does it. New York is doing a lot of shit well. Like they have just released news through the New York Times that the first 100 licenses will be equity, will be people who were affected by the war on drugs, the first 100.
Wow.
So that's like New York is setting the stage to have one of the best and most comprehensive like equity, kind of rules right out the gate. They're not capping as low as other places have. So yeah, that'll be really fun. I just like anticipate and watch with my popcorn and my pen and like what is weed gonna do next. It's one of my favorite storylines to cover in the country for real.
Yeah. And right alongside weed is psychedelics as well. And you write about that
Mm-hmm.
too, right?
Yeah, I do. I write about psilocybin. I started using psilocybin in Denver, where it's actually decriminalized now. Casually. Like it reminds me this one friend that I had who works in the cannabis industry invited me over for dinner and it was like this beautiful spaghetti spread. And it was like, here's your spaghetti, here's the sauce, here's a little cheese, and then here's a little crumpled mushroom psilocybin. So you could just like put a little bit of psilocybin on top of your
Like a
spaghetti, like
little.
with the cheese. Yeah, like sprinkle it. So
I'm
that was
jealous.
such a vibe. I was like, damn, Denver. I feel like all of my friends had used it for like mental health, wellness, some sort of like, let me see if this helps me more than SSRIs or other types of pharmaceuticals for depression, anxiety, PTSD. I believe so strongly in like plant medicine for
Hmm.
people, especially coming out of the pandemic and the amount of trauma that our poor little human bodies have endured. We're going to need healing. Like, invest in healing is just how I feel. And there's really, really promising studies for psilocybin. I like to cover them when they are like peer reviewed and they're really, really interesting. People want access to psilocybin. There are certain places where you can go that are like ketamine clinics. I've
Yes.
covered the ketamine clinics. I know that there's a few on the East Coast. There might be one in California. I've yet to go to it, but um, all of the research behind those medicines is like so dope, so hopeful. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see more come out, and I'll try to write about it.
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel about like the Denver culture versus California culture? Was it like a big difference or?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, California's weed culture is unlike any place in the world. And Denver was decriminalized a really long time ago. Even when I was a kid, I was smoking better weed in Colorado because they decriminalized it so long ago. But there's something about the growing temperature and the humidity in, like Humboldt in the Emerald Triangle in Northern California. If there's a place where you can do sun grown, that weed just tastes so beautiful and so lovely. That yeah, I just feel like I see a future where California will be able to export. Colorado kills it in certain areas. One of my favorite things to get in Colorado is like concentrates, including like batter. These
Mm.
companies like Green Dot does like a sick like whipped live rosin batter. They don't really have that here as often. So Colorado is a really evolved, really stable market. And because of that, there are some products that they just like perfected. Absolutely perfected. Like 710 Labs is in Colorado. Their batter and butter is beautiful. Green Dot, this place called Laser Cat. They're just like these brilliant mountain alchemists, and they're just like a different breed. California is also really expensive. I feel like the longer that something's legal, the more the market kind of like evens out and gets a little bit more affordable. But yeah, the regulations are really high here. So we have a lot more solutions to come to here. I feel like Colorado did a better job in everything except for equity.
Mm.
Colorado needed to have not a cap and not the opposite of an equitable kind of like licensed market to start. I love both places. I always will love Colorado, and like I will always show love to those brands that were born there because they're really really smart and they know what they're doing and they're really really like stable. And California is like a fucking roller coaster, absolutely insane. It's like hold on to your seat. But like as a writer, as a journalist, that's interesting to me to watch,
Yeah,
the roller coaster. But Colorado, they kill it, those companies, and they're very stable. It's the difference, biggest difference for me.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what has been the difference with you working at like smaller publications and bigger publications?
I love a small publication because like you can move, you're really nimble. Larger publications, like some places you needed to get things approved by people
Mm.
all the way up to the top. And so you're writing more like long term evergreen pieces. But if you're a small publication, if you have one editor, you can get stuff up so quickly. That's when you can get like the scoop. So like large publications or really large corporations that have like news within them, like Weedmaps News, they're not as nimble, they're not as small, they're not as agile. I love being like a one woman newsroom or like having one editor that I deal with at the publications I work at because I feel like we can move so fast. But I stand by all the work I've done at every place I've ever worked. And I even refer to my own work. Like I'll Google it to remember certain dates.
Hell yeah.
I view it as like history. Like I've told you before, like I will go back and read other authors as well. It's like, oh yeah, we wrote about that in 2016. Let me reference it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest like milestone in writing for you? Like has there been like a page that shared your work that you were like, "Oh my god."
Oh, there's a few. Vanity Fair shared my photos. Washington Post
Wow.
shared my photos. Um, I was gonna mention this earlier. I didn't interview him for Weed, but I got to interview Jack Black, who was one of my favorite interviewers of all time. I know he's so nice. It was for a movie premiere, not weed related, but like those type of opportunities, I would not trade for the world. Like cannabis has given me that, which I'm so grateful for.
That's awesome. And how do you go about like getting these writer opportunities? Do you have like an agent or are you just like personally you're just like a go-getter?
I am a go-getter. I am looking for an agent, but I just kind of like reach out to editors and pitch things, or I have editors reach out to me and say, I'm looking for someone here. It's a nice mixture of all of the above. I would say to other writers, if you see someone doing what you want to do, find out where they are, find their editors, find their email, and just start a dialogue. Be like, I'd love to write this. If they say no, I'd love to write this. Like, I really just kind of did my own research and reached out to get to every kind of like step along the way.
And being a woman writer, did you face any kind of bias in getting jobs? Did you feel that?
That's such a great question. Um, as a journalist, not really, but in cannabis, yes. I feel like being a woman in cannabis is tough. There are way more men. It's totally a boys' club. And so I'm constantly feeling as though I need to be like smarter or better, like know even more than the guys because I'm a female here in this male dominated space. But as a journalist, there's so many good women writers, women editors. I never really felt like that was a challenge as much as like maintaining authority on a certain beat if the beat's a boys club and we're kind of like the women in cannabis are like moving it towards normalization for everyone, you know?
I love that. And other than like having good writing talent and like a solid, portfolio, how can writers make their resumes stand out to places like Forbes or, what I mean, if that's their aspiration?
I feel like they need to pick a beat that they really, really care about and that is super specific, that is unique, that no one's doing, and that's authentic to them. Don't try to be the next someone else. Like, literally, just find what you're most passionate about within the canvas beat. I also feel like it's important to just kind of sell your own work on social media. Even if publications don't share my shit, I share my shit and I make sure everyone knows about it. And I'm not like waiting for a gatekeeper to shout it from the rooftops. I'm like, that's okay. I'll share it. I'll do whatever I need to do to kind of like seed it into the world, to spread it into the world. Not afraid of that.
I love that.
Mhm.
And so you interview like artists as well, like when it comes to music or actors. Sorry, I don't know why the word just escaped me for the moment. How do you go about like securing those? Do they come to you, or do you have to like reach out like by email? How do you go about that?
With really, really high up actors, I have to find their agent or their PR. Sometimes I have them come into my inbox, which I'm so grateful for. Otherwise, I'm not afraid to Instagram DM or Twitter message people and usually let them know what I'm doing. People are really nice, really receptive. People want publications to write about them. So they're always like, yes, please. Um, yeah, like don't be afraid to reach out. I do research and I find people's agents and I just start to ask really nicely, do you guys want to talk about weed? You know.
I love that. Do you find that like short and sweet emails? Because like I'm like I'm in the festival space as well, and I've been in the festival space, and I've been trying to like get interviews and do stuff with artists and set them up, and I'm just like a little bit nervous about it too because I want to be what I mean. I don't want to waste their time, and I want to be concise, but I'm not really sure about how best to go about interviewing um, these artists.
Super famous artists sometimes need like a draw, like the cover. So it's not personal, really, if artists don't want to do it unless they're on the cover. I feel like I like work my way up to like celebrities, to writing about celebrities, which would be like maybe I'll interview someone on the team of Houseplant and
Mm,
like keep asking like, hey, let me know if Seth and Evan want to talk, but can I talk to like the CFO or like the CMO or someone who wants to talk still? And just to kind of have your foot in the door, and then they have a story launch and they're like, Seth wants to talk. Just, to make yourself known, but to not be afraid to interview someone else on the team. Celebrities are like big fish. They're pretty hard to catch, but like offering them something like a cover or like a larger publication byline, like something that is like a little like a bit of meat for them to dig their teeth into, is more likely to get a response. But it's definitely a hard sell always to get the celebrities online.
yeah. And I saw you also got into photography. You said you got into the Washington Post. How did you go about uh, going into this new lane?
So I taught myself photography when I saw that digital journalism really, really rewarded original content. I wanted my own photos. I feel like we have access to things that other people don't. So I taught myself photography and I also feel brave with a DSLR around my neck. Like I can go anywhere. Like I'm a real journalist. It kind of feels like a superhero cape. I put my
Hell
camera
yeah.
on and I feel like when you have a DSLR and you walk with a purpose, like
I love
nobody
that.
stops you. Yeah, so it always made me feel brave. And I worked for the Denver Post, which is a part of the Associated Press, which is the only reason that the Washington Post took my photos and published them.
Oh,
Vanity Fair, I had a PR person seed them. Both of those opportunities don't come around often. In both cases, I just say yes. If someone say, can I use your photo? I say yes.
yeah.
And then it ends up being like really good for a long term.
That's cool. Do you post them anywhere, or is other
Yeah.
than your articles? Do you post them on like Unsplash or something?
I do like Unsplash. I don't use it personally. I used to post on Flickr. Mostly, I post on my website, lindseybartlett.com, and I post on Instagram. Instagram was always like my favorite photography space. I still use that for that reason, even though other people don't. I use Reels too, but I use it like as a photographer's
I
tool
love it.
still. Yeah.
No, I'm super familiar with it because I did a lot of things on the other side of the lens. I did modeling in Orlando for a little bit, doing like creative stuff. I'll have to follow you on Instagram. I found out about your Instagram late. I've been like looking at your LinkedIn, but
I'll follow you
we'll,
too. Oh,
yeah, we'll have
totally.
to
No,
get
you're fine.
connected.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it. I love photography. It goes hand in hand. It's like peanut butter and jelly with writing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think as like creators it just like always draws us to like learn new ways to just kind of put our brain on something, you know what I mean? And like there's like ways that we're like I think I can do that, you know what I mean? Either better or just like, in my own way, and it just
Hmm.
kind of like pushes you to keep pushing the envelope, even like your own competition with yourself even. Um
Exactly. It's like digital storytelling.
yeah.
Like it's words as well as a photo, and then like how are you painting this picture for the world? They're
Yeah.
all like that same little package. They all kind of go together.
And it's cool too because different photographers have different eyes, you know what I mean, like you can have the
Hmm.
same room, and I love going to like photo meets too because it'll be like one location but a bunch of different models, but you come out with like such different content every time. It's really really
Hmm.
fun. I love to
I
do it.
I totally agree. Can't wait to see your photos.
Yeah,
I'll follow you.
I love to do like very like out there. I've definitely gone about creating my own brand, and I'm like not necessarily like feminine or masculine. I just like to do whatever comes to my brain in like the day, and luckily I've gotten to work with like a lot of cool creatives in the area. Like there's like a really cool underground creative scene in Orlando that just like blasted me to St. Pete, would blasted me to like, you know what I mean? There's just
Mhm.
such cool things going on in Florida too, which I feel like a lot of people know us as like the place with alligators, but we got more than that for sure.
I love it. I can't wait to see the Florida cannabis industry evolve and blow up. The medical market's huge. Like,
Yeah.
sky's the limit for the East Coast.
Yeah, I'm oh, I don't know what happened. Maybe she'll be back. It might have been a computer glitch, but she'll be right back, I'm sure. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Howdy.
Hi, sorry I lost you.
No, no
Um,
worries.
so my phone um battery is pretty low. I just wanted
Oh,
to give you a warning. I thought it kicked me off, but no, I'm still on.
no, it's okay.
I was like, what was that? Okay, cool. Just a fair warning. I have a few minutes.
I feel you. If it ends,
Thank
it
you.
ends. And we'll just end it early if that
I
happens.
did. I didn't want you to think that I like left
No,
though, but
no
my
worries.
phone.
I was literally like, I'm sure she's coming back. It happens to me
Yeah,
all the time. Literally, I'll be having like such important calls, and then my phone will die, and I'm like, how is
I
that?
know.
Like the worst times. I hate
Yeah,
it.
like
I've
interviewing Wiz Khalifa or something. I'm like, oh shit, technology. Everyone understands. They get
Yeah.
it at this
Literally,
point.
I've
Yeah.
had my ring light fall over on me during an interview. My computer has like given me like the low battery thing, and I'm like, oh my god, I realized
Oh
it's not
shit.
charging, and I'm like, I'll be right back, and I literally do, and then I like ran, and so it happens. It
I get
happens.
you. I do it all the time. I was like rolling joints, smoking a joint with Tommy Chong on Facebook Live, and the camera fell over like twice. And he's like, she's already high. He like made a joke out of it. And I was like, that's perfect.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
just keep going. That's like the flexibility that you need to be like a digital storyteller. Just like, please, tools, please, gods of technology, work for us.
Yes, and I feel like in the cannabis industry, it's a lot. I mean, we're just like a more chill, relaxing, forgiving people. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
feel like if you do anything, nobody's gonna like be like they were super unprofessional. I'm not gonna
People
be
are
like that.
so
Maybe,
nice.
yeah,
No,
for
people are
real.
so nice. People are so understanding. And it's such a new industry. So I feel like, it's a very baby, very nascent industry. So there's like growing pains always.
Yeah, for real. Have you talked to Josh Kesselman from Raw ever?
He's so cool. I follow him on social. He kills it on TikTok.
I
There's one
know.
example. He
He's so
made
cool.
joints pretzels. So he's like, how do you roll your pretzels? So he just replaced joints and weed all together. and has succeeded with that method. And now people on TikTok even use pretzel like synonymously with joints. He's funny. He's so sweet. I've never interviewed him, but he's always at like MJ BizCon, and like I have to go find him next time.
Yeah, for real. Like he's like one of my cannabis icons. I love following him on Instagram because he's just his energy. He's just super cool, and I've heard that he's like the exact same way in real life too, and that's just like always what you want to hear. You know what I mean?
Very high vibe, yeah. And I know he gets his papers like from Spain, like the original city that the papers were made in,
Wow.
like 500 years ago, is where the papers for raw are made today. So I think he does a good job.
Yeah, he's definitely all about like
Mm-hmm.
authenticity and just
Mm-hmm.
like making cool new stuff all the time. He's like an innovator. I love
Yeah.
seeing like people like that, you know what I mean, doing big things. Like just a great energy,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're also super smart doing like cool stuff. Keep doing
He's
it.
so smart. And any ancillary company that like every brand has to use is really smart. Like
Yeah,
every brand needs papers.
for
Every
real.
brand needs packaging. So the brands individually are doing really well. I mean, taxes aside, because taxes are really tough in California. But ancillary companies like papers, like joints, or I'm sorry, like grinders or like packaging, um, it's like a dark horse. Like those companies make money from every brand. So Josh is like one of those examples. It's really smart.
Yeah, for real. And like,
Mhm.
as we go more into federalization too, there'll be more and more accessories and just like things like plus weed, you know what I mean? Yoga plus weed, like
Yeah.
music plus weed, it's like I'm super excited, especially for the festival scene too, because we have like things like
Mhm.
Rolling Loud where it's like, obviously weed themed, the culture, you know what I mean, obviously weed themed. But
Mhm.
it's just so funny because, I be like looking at states from afar and just so envious of like the, very open culture, because even though,
Mhm.
you can smoke at festivals are like, I feel like a little enclave, like a different world, you know what I mean? And then once
And you
you leave
still
the
have to
gates,
lie. You still have to like
yeah,
sneak it in. Like,
exactly.
why do I have to like sneak this in, or like it gets taken away, or it always feels like illegal. And
I
it's like, come
know.
on, you know that we're smoking at like a Wiz Khalifa festival. I actually
For
got my
real.
weed. My weed was taken at the 420 festival on the rocks with Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa that the weed company that I work for was sponsoring. They took my weed. I was like, you guys, come
That's so
on.
that's so
I
sad.
know. It's so sad. I want venues to come around. Outdoor venues in California, Colorado, Florida. Why not? Like outdoor
Yeah.
venues is a no-brainer. We have to come to terms with like the alcohol and weed of it, because usually they make them pick. Like they
Mm,
make festivals pick. Do you
interesting.
want weed consumption or do you want to serve alcohol? And they'll often pick alcohol. So it's hard with the double consumption. I feel like people should have the choice. We're just like kind of not there yet. We're getting there, but I want people to have that option.
That's so interesting. I feel like they would want,
Mhm.
the money that comes from both sides, but I guess maybe they assume that like they should just have ancillary stuff. Like I've been to
Mhm.
Firefly up in Dover, and they had like we bought like a bong from there or a bowl from there or something like that. Like you can just get like silicone stuff, but obviously you can't get any like actual products while I was there, I don't think. I don't know how they
Yeah,
got
like
away with that, but
mhm.
yeah, it was
No, I
cool.
see I see that all the time. Like little craft festivals will sell pipes, but you
Yeah.
can't consume there. It's like you have to go lie about it somewhere.
Yeah.
I think consumption is that final puzzle piece that will really help a lot of places. So people don't feel like they're smoking in like alleyways,
Yeah.
like in the
For real, cause
shadows.
yeah,
Yeah.
cause then it just adds to the stigmatization of it, right? If you gotta be secretive about it, then you feel like it's, like, not
Mhm.
okay, and then, you know what I mean, it's harder to talk about in group settings, but
And this is also what we're working against is like self-policing. Like we were
yeah,
taught to police ourselves for so long that people are like, I feel paranoid when I smoke weed. I'm like, are you actually paranoid from the weed, or are you paranoid from like a police state, like self-policing, which
yeah,
is like you're constantly looking over your shoulder, thinking you're going to get in trouble and then get a felony that ruins your life. I
right,
don't think weed makes people paranoid as much as police state, the war on drugs makes people paranoid. That's just like my personal thought. And that
yeah,
takes years to unlearn. Like
true,
years of living in California to like be comfortable smoking a joint without feeling like, am I breaking the law? Like I have my medical
yeah,
card. I'm not. I
yeah,
still
me too, and I feel that, But I think that's all the time that we have today. We just got to end it a little bit early. She's having a little bit of phone troubles. But it's been a great podcast. Today we talked to Lindsey Bartlett. She is a influential woman in cannabis and music. She does mostly cannabis, but it's been awesome talking to her about just her career writing, cannabis and psychedelics in general. Oh, she's back. We're back.
I do for you.
Hey,
Sorry about that. That won't
no,
happen
you're
again.
good. You're good. You're good.
Okay, good.
And yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, just something about Florida weed. I always love talking about it. There's so many opportunities too in Florida because you know what I mean. We're not there yet. That there should be like more festivals and more big things done, and it just has to like somebody has to do it. You know what I mean? But um.
It's
I'd do
coming.
it I'd do it if I had the resources and like the knowledge, but I'm so new into this. Like obviously you know what I mean? All I could do is try to tell people, "Hey, we need this. Hey, we need this." But you know what I mean?
And document it, and I'll go to it.
Yeah.
But I think Florida, everyone has their eyes on Florida. Every brand that I talk to, that's the next place they're launching. Like Wiz Khalifa's brand entering Florida. Jeter, one of my favorite pre-roll brands, the best-selling pre-rolls in California, the best-selling pre-roll brand across the country is going to Florida. 710 Labs going to Florida. It's the first on everyone's list. So I always kind of felt really hopeful that the movement from medical to rec will be just like really, really fun there. And I want to come report there.
Yeah, it's
Come
it's
smoke with
super
you.
cool. Yeah, for sure. Please, please. Anytime, like literally if you come to Florida, I will smoke you out.
I'm so down.
You just
I'm
gotta
so
connect. Hell
down.
yeah. Yeah, Florida's like dope. We should hit up a music festival because music festivals in Florida like unmatched. I mean, well, I can't really say unmatched. I really have only done one festival like out in Dover, so I really need to hit up the scene like in Cali and New York cuz I really want to go to Governor Ball and I really want to go to like, all the big ones. But it's been really cool to hit a lot of the festivals here in Florida. I just got back from Okeechobee and then I'm going to Ultra at
Oh,
the end of the
cool.
yeah, I'm super excited. Do you ever do like festival writing and stuff?
I used to write a little bit more about the music scene. I do still write about cannabis festivals. Like I wrote a list at Weed Maps about all of the most essential cannabis festivals to go to, which like include for the first time like South by Southwest started doing the cannabis conference simultaneously, and then it became like, yes, it's a music fest, but it's also one of the sickest cannabis conferences, and it's in Texas. Like no cannabis conferences are ever in Texas, so that's always fun. I wrote more about music when I lived in Colorado, but I still try to go. I haven't been to a show in a while, but I went to the Hollywood.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Bowl before the world shut down, and not worry about that.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it broke up a little bit, but you're okay right now.
Okay, cool. It must be my Wi-Fi. Thank you guys for your
No, no,
patience. And also, thank you for having me. It's so fun.
yeah, it's been so fun talking to you. I've been excited too because you're a writer. I always love talking to writers too because
Me
I'm really new
too.
in this, and I always love to hear more about the industry. It's like super exciting to have like a not even like a not a blueprint, but like you know what I mean. There's somebody in front of you that has done this like successfully, and you know what I mean. You've talked to cool people. You've like worked for really solid companies, and like I'm very inspired by you. So.
I'm so inspired by you. I feel the same way. I always love other writers. I always love other photographers. That's why I loved everyone I met on Respect My Region's team. I was like, oh, a journalist. If there's like a journalist table, like I will go find my people. It's always so fun to talk shop. And it makes me feel hopeful. Talking with you invigorates me, and talking with anyone about cannabis journalists always makes me feel really hopeful.
Hell yeah. Well, it's almost the end of our podcast. I always like to ask people if they'd like to shout anything out before we reach the end.
Shout anything out. I'm just working on a few things. I can't announce anything yet, but I'm super excited to write about cannabis in other modes. in screenwriting and in books. I feel
Very
like we have space for like female stoners, um, like in a way that's never been done before. And I always say this, but like Seth Rogen, the best stoner movies ever, Pineapple Express. But then there aren't that many other like cultural zeitgeist like stoner movies that really reflect to me like the modern cannabis culture. One show that has done it really well was like Broad City.
I
But
love Broad
like
City.
me too. I love High Maintenance, but like even then, I feel like no one has written enough. Like no show has done enough. I would love to see like some travel show,
Yeah,
a la Anthony Bourdain, but like for cannabis, because every
for
single place
sure.
has such like a regional kind of like flavor and taste to it. Every single place, there's so many stories to tell for these people who are like unlicensed to licensed to people in other countries, like in India. They've been drinking weed for like thousands of years. It's called Bang, and
Mm,
it's like medicine, and also it's like a party drink. And
wow.
yeah, I just would love to see cannabis take on like these mainstream, like worldwide storytelling platforms. Um, there's so many more voices. There's so many more voices out there that I can't wait to hear from.
For sure. And you are one of mine. You're one of
Oh,
my
thank
voices that
you.
I couldn't wait to hear from, and here we are. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on my podcast. It's been really awesome speaking to you. Again, this is Lindsey Bartlett. I am Maddie Forbes, and this is High Women Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Maddie.
Yeah.